What is up YouTube, and welcome back to the RiftGuides WildRift video. It's time for a new patch, and here we have some significant changes, new champion announcement, and well, some interesting other changes we need to talk about, especially in the item department. But before we go, let's take a look at what Riot is telling us here. Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Maokai's sapling aimed straight at you. Hope you weren't sitting in a brush or anything. Let's find somewhere comfy to go over the rest of this patch note. We have some fun new game modes to try out, a brand new wild pass to grind, and our regularly scheduled balance changes. Welcome to patch 5.1c. First off, we have Maokai, a new champion, the Twisted Trent. Maokai is a rageful, towering Trent who fights the unnatural horrors of the Shadow Isles. He was twisted into a force of vengeance after a magical cataclysm destroyed his home, surviving undeath only through the waters of life infused within his hardwood. Once a peaceful nature spirit, Maokai now furiously battles to banish the scourge of unlife from the Shadow Isles and restore his home to its former beauty. Maokai will be released on the 14th of June. New features: Arena, Ruinous Might. We got a new NPC and some new augments, so come try it out. Arena Ruinous Might will be available on June 6. The spacing is kinda off, but yeah, we have Earth League of Draven. You're Draven and they're Draven and everyone is Draven. That looks goofy. Available on the 14th of June. Ah, come on, cat. Okay, she jumped down. For the events, we have Maokai's Trivia. New champion alert, complete missions to earn goodies. Maokai's Trivia event begins on the 14th of June. Now showing rotating game modes. Try out a lineup of different game modes such as PvP, ARAM, ranked and special game modes such as Earth and One for All to earn goodies. The now showing rotating game modes event begins on the 17th of June. Wild Pass Sprint. Log in and complete a Wild Pass mission to earn prizes. This event begins on the 21st of June. Now with all the things around this patch out of the way, let's talk about the heart of the patch, the champion changes. Zed is not doing so hot compared to other assassins, especially in the early game. We are tweaking some of his numbers to ensure he's keeping up. Okay, let me briefly whip out the epic pen so you all see what I'll be talking about. Okay. So what they're doing is they're buffing the early game power. Wait, can I change this in a way that is actually a little bit better? I think this works. Yes. Okay, now I need to make it bigger. So here we have an increase in the early game on on his ultimate on rank 1 and 2. Be increasing more damage on the mark. So if you think about this, Zed has to actually hit spells for this increase to actually make a difference. And usually if Zed hit you with spells from the ultimate, you kinda died regardless. So I don't really know why this change is happening. I think it would have been better to just increase, for example, the damage of his shurikens or something about his third ability. But I don't think approaching it from the ult angle is the right thing to balance Zed, because if he hits you with spells with ultimate, you died anyway, even tanky targets died. Wukong. What do we have here? Wukong hasn't been able to clear jungle camps as fast as other junglers, resulting in him lagging behind. These changes will make sure he's able to keep up the pace so he can better help out his lanes as well. So we have an increase in the damage department in the first ability by plus 10, and we don't have any scaling increase here. The Warrior Trickster is also being decreased in cooldown from 17 to only 14. That is a massive buff for the Warrior Trickster. The Golden Staff damage is very, it's okay, it's nice to have, but if there's one thing we need to talk about Wukong, it's about the identity he has now. He used to be this drain tank, like this survivor champion that just keeps on healing over and over again, and now Wukong is like the one-shot champion, which is leading to one certain problem. Wukong is either one-shotting you or he's completely useless. That's like the only real approach there is, because other than this, he doesn't really perform too well. Next up, we have Cannon. You know when you shuffle your feet and then touch a door handle? I personally don't. That little static shock is when playing Cannon, or is what playing Cannon has been feeling like lately. Not ideal, so we're buffing his base stats as well as his damage and cooldown so he can really bring out the Tempest. So what they're doing, they're buffing the early game by giving him 4 more base AD. It's pretty huge. They're also increasing his armor, also by a significant amount, by 3. So keep in mind, he's already getting so many stat buffs in the, like, just base stats wise. And it gets even worse when you take a look at it later on. So you have an increase in passive damage by 10. There is no scaling changes. And there's a lightning rush cooldown reduction from 1.5 seconds. So this actually, like, if we combine this, like this here and this is very powerful. Because this allows you to play lane fundamentally different. If there's one thing though that kind of makes this a little problem is Heartsteel tanks and Merc Treads make Cannon really difficult to play. And Cannon isn't really an infamous mid laner. He can be played mid lane like a cheese pick. It works. It does work really well if people don't expect it. But into like tanky components or tanky champions, he really struggles. So what do we have next? We have Rakan. As an offensive support, Rakan is more fragile than a baby bird with prettier feathers. How can we expect him to fly into the enemies when he's crumbling so easily? We're tweaking his numbers so he can finally soar. Okay, so what are they doing? They're increasing the base health from 450 to 570 and the base armor from 40 to 43. Early game, a lot more potent with this, because in early game this is roughly 1 auto attack in terms of damage, and if you add the base armor to it, it probably goes down to like 1.5 to maybe 2 auto attacks in total that he is more tanky in the early game. They're also changing the shielding value of his third ability. You gain 15 more flat on level 1, which means Rakan is now substantially better during the laning phase. Having 30 more HP, more base armor, and providing you with a bigger shield makes him most definitely better when it comes to laning. However, Rakan's laning was never really his strongest suit, especially in a hack slash centric meta. There's just so much you can do to avoid Rakan's engage, which basically takes away all the strength he has in laning. His real strength comes from key ultimates and being lightning fast. So these changes don't really do anything for that one, like he was already okay or good if you were good. Nonetheless, this makes his laning a lot more bearable, so he's definitely a lot better with this. Diana, or Diana, depends. Diana has been feeling a little bit underwhelming lately. I guess the recent eclipse is pretty distracting. We're gonna make sure her spells still pack a punch though. So what are they doing? They're reducing the cooldown of a most used spell by 1 second, which is sizable, and the mana costs by a pretty decent amount by 5 per rank. Since you max this spell the first, you'll actually get a decent amount of power from this. They're also changing the second ability, Pale Cascade. So what are they doing? They're adjusting the shield values. The damage of this ability goes up by 5% in the scaling department, and the shield value gets a direct increase by 10. There's no ability power scaling change though when it comes to this. But there's going to be a slight change when it comes to the third detonation, which is basically mirroring the buff in the inherent shield value anyway. So after the third detonation, instead of a 40 shield, you gain a 50 shield here. So this is in total a 20 shield buff for Diana, as well as a 1 second cooldown change and more damage on the scaling department. This is supposed to make her better in a meta where she doesn't perform very well, because Diana needs a lot of items to be functional, and a lot of other meta jungles right now are just more powerful early on, putting Diana into a spot where she isn't really shining that much. They're trying to combat this, but I don't think they'll succeed by just doing this. However, if Diana is getting fed, you'll most definitely notice, since she's an AP champion, that you're gonna get one shot anyway. A very interesting change we are seeing here is coming to Vi. All the armor on her isn't just for looks, it should mean something, so we are buffing Vi's survivability to make sure she can go toe-to-toe with any enemy junglers that come her way. So she gets a 6 armor buff, as well as a 2 second cooldown reduction on her shield. This will make her more healthy during the jungle clear. This will make her even more powerful during skirmishes, and depending on how severe these buffs are, she might be able to actually go toe-to-toe with people in skirmishes. So it's definitely an interesting change, but another thing that this enables you to do is something I'm testing out more recently. It's more Senna compositions. Since AD carries are so fragile and so difficult to pilot, so how about just pairing up more bruises with a Senna, and doing this might actually enable Vi to be played in the in the dragon lane, with a Senna. Because if you utilize your third ability to clear the wave in combination with Senna's first ability, you have a very good tool of just getting waves cleared, and then you can utilize Senna's second ability in combination with Vi's first ability to lock down people for eternity. So this might generally be a possibility I will take a look at, so stay tuned for this one, but definitely a good change for Vi. Shyvana. Shyvana is a champion that needs time and farm to ramp up to reach her final form. However, the overall speed of the gameplay recently has been outpacing her. We're buffing her numbers to make sure she's able to keep up. Draconic Bloodline. Rounds 12 to 15 stacks of Draconic Bloodline by taking down enemy champions, slaying the Rift Herald or Baron Nashor. So what does this do? Killing camps, killing monsters always grants Shyvana stacks. Killing a dragon grants her the most stacks, but you're not forced to do so. This way she gets some more benefits of not slaying the dragon, making it easier for her to just make up for the fact that she not always gets dragons. And Herald's just a better objective. What do we have for the next change? Burnout. This has been buffed recently before as well, and now we're seeing another increase from 35 to 40. And keep in mind, this ability is active for how long? Is it 7 seconds or 9? I don't know the rough timer. So this makes a decent amount of difference because it's 1 extra tick during the jungle clear. And that way she even clears faster. And for jungle champions, you have to keep in mind, clearing the jungle fast is very, very important to stay relevant in a game. If, for example, your champion cannot force ganks all the time, since Shyvana is such an ult-centric champion. Gragusi. Gragas has not been performing up to par, so we're making him a little bit tankier and more suitable for any situation on the Rift that might be thrown at him. Passive, Happy Hour, health regen from 7% to 8.5% max health, and the Drunken Rage damage mitigation is getting a flat increase from 8 to 11 by just 1 point you put into, and the damage goes up from 20 to 50. So what are you asking for? What changed? What Gragas does benefit from this? It is going to be the Baron lane Gragas as well as the support Gragas. Both of them will be heavily influenced by this change. Ezreal's signature is his ability to reposition himself as he sees fit. We are buffing him slightly so he can have better maneuverability no matter what the situation he finds himself in. So what are they doing? They're giving him 4 base armor, they're increasing the damage of his first ability by 15 flat across all ranks, and they're lowering the cooldown of his Arcane Shift by 4 seconds in the early game and by 1 second in the late game. So, what does this mean? They're trying to make Ezreal more powerful. The issue with Ezreal is, his damage charts will always look very high since his damage is mostly from poking. But Ezreal necessarily doesn't always get into a spot where he can kill. Also, by using items such as Blade Rune King, you will have very high entry damage, hitting a 7k HP target with a Mystic Shot, but you will not kill it. So your damage chart looks absolutely crazy, but you will barely get a kill. But what is the biggest issue with Ezreal, and what are they not tackling at all? They are not tackling the issue that this ability here, Mystic Shot, is not reducing its own cooldown. On the PC version of League of Legends, we have this ability also reducing its own cooldown. So without this, Ezreal actually lacks quite a lot of damage in fights because he can't really keep up with other crit AD carries unless the Ezreal is hilariously fat. Because as soon as we go into later stages of the game, the moment Ezreal gets into a situation where he has to actually DPS check somebody, he's just losing out too much. Especially since Ezreal has been a Kraken user all the time and he's lost a massive rune by the loss of Kraken Slayer. Because keep in mind, PTA can only be procced on one target, and the moment you hit another target, it's another stack entirely. And therefore, with Kraken being gone, he lost so much damage because Kraken beforehand was a self-stacking rune that didn't care about who you hit. Next champion on the chopping block is Yone. We are tweaking Yone's numbers ever so slightly to make sure he's in line with everyone else. The base stats of armor go down from 40 to 37, good change, he has too much base armor, and the Mortal Steel base damage is going up from 25 to 30, and the damage to monsters goes down from 80 to 70. For the Mouth Goblins, does this really affect his early jungle clear a lot because he's getting a 5% damage, 5 flat damage buff to this. I don't think it does too much for the jungle clear. Yone jungle clear has been very slow anyway, and he was more of a scaling champion. But in all honesty, is this really so much of a change that puts him lower or weaker? Because think about this. He loses 3 armor, which is a fair change, right? But he gains 5 base damage on his most spammed ability. So is it necessarily a change that you want to see? Because Yone didn't really suffer from having too little damage. If there's something that is very annoying recently, is Yone's massive shielding on his second ability. So why not tackle this ability, and why are they giving him even more damage? So I'm not really a fan of this because he already had enough damage. Oh, Viego and crit items. These changes will make sure his bursts don't become ridiculous. They are, and they will still be, so don't worry. So what are they changing? His first ability, Blade of the Rune King, gets a slight change. The damage of the second hit is reduced from 30 to 20, so they're basically reverting the buff on that one, and the damage scaling with crit goes down from 75% from 100%. On his ultimate ability, we have a change in scaling, so it goes up from 120 to 240 beforehand, and now it goes down to 210% of the AD, and the bonus damage gets a change, so you only gain a 6% instead of a 7.5% bonus attack damage scaling depending on the enemy's lost health. So let me tell you this. This might sound nice, right? This might sound like an actual nerf. But if a Viego touched you, just keep in mind, whenever a Viego touched you, how fast did you die? Were you able to blink once? Were you able to blink twice? Were you able to say a word, or did you just instantly die? Because Viego as a champion does way too much damage. Even with the change from 30% AD to 20% AD anti-crit reduction, like a crit damage reduction, which are sizable nerfs, don't get me wrong, these are quite okay. If a Viego does 160% of your entire HP in 1 second, and now only does 120% of your entire HP in 1 second, is this champion then truly balanced? I'm curious to see how it will play out, but I don't think it will change the power level of Viego too much. Lilia. Lilia is knocking her enemies over like bowling pins, we're nerfing a damage before she scores another strike. So what are they doing? They are lowering the damage of blooming blows from 40 to 35 and the ability scaling from 45 to 40. The true damage portion will also be nerfed from 40 to 35 and the ability power also. Keep in mind this is a double dipping nerf because Lilia's first ability does damage, like the base damage twice, given that the other part is being true damage. So she loses 10% ability power damage on her first ability, as well as 10 flat damage. This is a very big nerf because it's also the most used ability of Lilia. So what change do we have next? We have no base damage change on the second ability, we have a flat scaling change, we have a ability power scaling change from 40 to 35. The center damage is also seeing a power nerf from 80% to 70%. So yeah, Lilia is getting a sizable nerf this patch, making her a lot weaker, especially for the jungle clear, because keep in mind your first ability is the one you max the earliest, because on level 1 you put a point into it and on level 3. So this is actually a sizable nerf that also affects her clearing. Hecarim. Hecarim has been rampaging through his enemies effortlessly. We're tweaking some numbers and optimizing how his rampage works to make sure he's grounded. Growth health. From 120 to 112 per level, so he loses 8 health per level. Rampage. Remove the mechanic, first click to charge, then click to cast in advance. Charging Hecarim's halberd for 0.75 seconds, increase the area he deals damage to. Automatically cast when fully charged, dealing 5 blah 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 damage. Okay, so apparently Hecarim's first ability was too complex to use, so they're dumbing it down. Amazing. And the third ability, Devastating Charge, the continuous movement speed increase is reduced from 65 to 55, which is also an immediate nerf to his damage because Hecarim gains bonus damage depending on his movement speed. If I understand this rampage part correctly, you cannot choose to cancel your first ability earlier. It's just automatically casting it. There's nothing you can do, which is a skill expression nerf. 8 HP per level, nobody cares about this. 10% movement speed change, yeah, that's very cool. Does it change the champion in any way? Nope. This champion is still broken in the way it is, and yeah, I want to see some real nerfs, Riot Games. And you're nerfing Lilia by removing her most used spell, 10% scaling, 10 flat damage, as well as even more, like the same thing on her second ability, and then you do the same change to a Hecarim, and then you change Hecarim, and this is the only thing you do. The issue is, I don't know the numbers of Hecarim here from the live server, so there might be a nerf, but if that is still the same numbers, then Riot Games, that is just a joke. Misfortune. Post-rework Misfortune has not been as impactful as we had hoped. We're increasing her damage so she can remain a good choice as a strong AD carry. Yeah, that's major copium. Double up. The base damage goes up from 40 to 60, and the scaling goes up by 5, you see, total. And there's no ability power change. They're changing the strut, so the increase is from 1 to 2 seconds if you fully activate the love tab, and make it rain. The damage per second gets a flat increase of 5 in the early game and 2 in the late game. No ability power scaling change, and the cooldown goes down by 1.5 seconds early game, but no changes in the late game. They're also lowering the mana cost. So now, let me tell you the truth about this change. This is actually benefiting AP Misfortune a lot more than it does AD Misfortune. They are lowering the cooldown of your third ability, the mana cost of your third ability, and the base damage of your third ability, and grant you more flat damage on your first ability. Why would you play AD? Because, here's the truth. The old Misfortune passive, right? It was 49 of your base AD. Let me actually open up the real notepad, okay? Hold up. Here. The old Love Theft passive was 49 to 105% AD. So if you hit somebody with your first ability, okay? That is 49 plus 49. At least, okay? So you instantly dealt 89%, 98, 89, 98, it's German brain. You know how it goes. Percent of your AD instantly. In the late game, this increased obviously to 210%. Now, if you go for the full combo, like you Q somebody, there's another target behind, so I'll just name this Q2. So Q1, Q2, plus the AA on the previous, like, Prev Q1 target. That is 49 plus 49 plus 49, and then, like, in the late game, you have 100, 5 times 3. So you have 315% of your AD as an instant damage tool. And now the total damage of your passive, if you fully proc Loft Tap, is an increase in damage from 8% to 11.9%. But you need to hit 3 times on your first target to proc this, or hit the Loft Tap target, or use your spells. So the moment you get to auto attack people, you need to hit 3 times to proc this. So how is this going to make up for this massive loss? Because if you think about a scenario where you get to consistently proc Loft Tap, especially with your first ability, you kind of realize that they are changing Misfortune from a burst AD carry to a DPS AD carry. But Misfortune doesn't feature the tools to provide DPS. So what are they doing? They're funneling more power into her spells, but who is standing still in her spells? So again, you want to push an agenda about a champion, which was completely fine. Misfortune wasn't in a bad spot at all. She was okay. She had enough damage to actually be competitive as a pick, to actually achieve something. But now they just take away so much of the burst damage in one-shot meta to give her DPS. Makes no sense. Okay, the next thing is going to be Mr. Jaximus. Let me get all on the screen here. Okay. Babe, wake up, it's time for the Jax rework. We want to make him smoother to play as well as stronger in team fights. Jax rework will be live on the 20th of June. So what are they doing? Leap Strike. They're changing the... Wait, they're completely removing AP scaling? Yeah, they're just removing the AP scaling completely. Why? It's just gone and there's no compensation. Huh, interesting. His second ability now deals bonus damage to monsters, 125. In previous times they didn't want Jax to be in the jungle role, so they basically gutted their champion in the jungle department, and now they're giving him more damage to monsters. Interesting. What else are they doing? Let me scroll down so we see it on the front page here. Counter-Strike. The damage scaling of this one is getting a change. So previously it used to be plus 50% of the attack damage scaling, and it was physical damage. Whoops, what am I doing? I'm griefing. Hold up. So it turns from bonus physical damage and 55 flat to 160 to 35 to 155 plus 3% of the target's max health plus ability power magic damage. Interesting. Very, very interesting. What else are they doing? Removed Grandmaster's Might. Passive. Deals an additional 60 to 160 damage plus 70% AP magic damage with every 3 consecutive attacks after you launched within 3 seconds. New. Active. Swings the stave, dealing 150 to 350 damage plus 100% ability power and magic damage to nearby enemies. When hitting only one enemy champion, gains 50 to 70 plus 40% bonus attack damage, armor and magic resist equal to 60% of that armor. If he hits more than one champion, he gains a bonus of 50 to 25 plus 10% AD, armor and magic resist equal to 60% of the armor for 8 seconds per additional champion hit. During this time, his size increases by 10% and deals additional magic damage with every second attack. And it has a bonus damage modifier to monsters. Jax might be able to be played in a jungle again. I'm curious to see what it does for his laning. Like, it should be better against tanky targets, given that one, like given this here. But yeah, like, I want to see this actually. Maybe Jax might turn into a very broken champion, maybe he's not. He will definitely have more burst damage. Like, cause think about this, right? If he pre-stacks this here, this passive, and he gets 2 on minions, and then jumps onto you as a champion, and then the third hit plus his ultimate is triggered, that's a lot of burst damage. So he might just one-tap you. Interesting. Okay, what do we have next? Rod of Ages. We are making sure Rod of Ages providing more stats to champions in the late game so that it remains an attractive pickup for players. So let's see what they're doing. So currently it provides 20 health, 10 mana, 6 ability power, stacking every 45 seconds, with maximum of 10 stacks, 200 health, 100 mana, 60 ability power. Each stack now provides 25 health, 10 mana, 6 ability power, stacking every 40 seconds with a max stack of 10 stacks, 250 health, 100 mana, 60 ability power. So you will stack it roughly 1 minute faster. And you gain 50 extra health. And you believe this item will be bought again? Really? I don't think this item will be bought. There's just no way. There's maybe a few exceptions if you play Baron lane champions, like Graga's Baron lane or Northul's Baron lane, that maybe need the sustain of mana to actually reach levels of tankiness and sustainability. Like mana sustain, because of the catalyst, giving you infinite mana if you fight. But yeah, I don't think anyone will just look at this item. I just can't see it happening. Rune changes! What do we have here? Overgrowth. With recent items granting max bonus health, Overgrowth is making chump champions too tanky, so we're nerfing it slightly. 3.5% max health every 30 to 3% up to 30 stacks. Okay, very cool. So we have Heartsteel in the game, and for some reason we are nerfing Overgrowth Rune. So who does this nerf? It nerfs Heartsteel champions that invest into the Resolve tree. This is okay as a change, but it nerfs, for example, jungle champions as well, because jungle champions that were running Overgrowth are receiving a direct hit by this as well. I don't necessarily think it's a bad change. Overgrowth has been overtuned anyway, so I think out of all the changes in the entire patch, this is probably the best change. What do we have next here? Skins. Oh yes, skins. We have Tranquility Dragon Calm on the 7th of June, Storm Dragon Lee Sin on the 7th of June as well, Duality Dragon Volibear, Obsidian Dragon Sad, Steel Dragon Thrash, and Zephyr Dragon Master Yi Mythic Chroma Super Duper Ultimate Giga Super 5 billion Euro Edition, also releasing on the 7th of June. Meowkai releasing on the 14th of June, and Infernal Shen also on the 14th of June. And with that, we are at the end of this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and come back for more RiftGuides content, and see you soon. And as per usual, have an amazing day. See ya.